Hello Year 10, we are on to week 6 of this half term and now that we're back at college, during your lessons in college and at home we've been working on building your knowledge and understanding of Romeo and Juliet. So we've been identifying your strengths in your knowledge of that play and your gaps in knowledge as well. Over the last few weeks, you've also been developing your retrieval and revision skills to help you in your study of the other set English Literature GCSE texts and helping you prepare for your language exams as well. This week, you will take the first steps in answering a full exam question. Okay, now don't panic, we are going to take it really, really slowly and step by step and support you in doing this. So this is really where we left off last week and in the lessons in college as well. So we've been looking at that single quotation analysis, and that method of exploding quotations is really, really great for preparing your analysis for the exam and revising those key quotations. However, in the exam itself, you will be presented with a longer extract from the play. Okay, and approaching these longer extracts is what we're going to look at this week. So that's what the exam looks like there. Okay, you get given an extract and a question to answer. Okay, so let's imagine for a moment that this is the extract that you're presented with. It's from Act 2, Scene 2, and it's the balcony scene. So once you've read that through, the first thing you sort of want to ask yourself is, what is happening here? What is happening in this extract? So this is the moment where Romeo is talking to Juliet at her balcony, and he is excited to be there with her, and he's talking about what his love for her can do, okay, the power it can give him, the protection, the bravery. She, though, is worried for him. She's worried that he's there. And this is just before they declare their love for each other and agree to marry. What you'll notice probably is those first couple lines are familiar to us. We already have some analysis prepared for this quotation, so we're already ahead of ourselves in terms of our analysis. And chances are, whatever extract they give you, you will be familiar with at least a little bit of it. You will be able to pick out a quotation that you have seen and analysed before. Okay, so we're familiar with that. So we now need to think about what else stands out to us. So as I'm looking through this extract, I might think about that first little bit, as we know, as a little reminder to ourselves that that's about the power of his love for her and what it has enabled him to do, the freedom that it's given him, the power that it's given him. I might then look at that word murder and think about how that shows the intensity of the hatred between the families, and that's why she's worried. Okay, but it also speaks to the lengths that Romeo is prepared to go to be with Juliet. He's prepared to face death for her. Then I might think about the fact that Romeo describes the power of Juliet's look. Okay, the fact that her eyes are more powerful than 20 of their swords, and therefore she used to look at him sweetly. He can handle anything. So again, his love for her makes him fearless. He feels like he can do anything. But Juliet is still fearful. She does not want him to be found there. Okay, she's worried about him. But Romeo thinks he's protected by this intangible darkness, this nothingness, but he thinks he is protected by it. But he is willing to die if she doesn't love him. He says he would rather die by their hate than die waiting for her love. So again, we've got those links to love and death. When she asks him how he found this place, she's still worried. He says love guided him through his own eyes. He lent love his eyes to find her. And he also compares himself to a sailor, a pilot of the seas, and how he would search the sea for her. Okay, so I'm starting to think about what this extract is really telling me. But of course, we're not just looking for our inferences and our understanding of what's happening. We're looking for those specific devices that Shakespeare's used and what those can tell us. So we've already talked about the personification and the metaphor in those first few lines, but there's also personification there of the knight, as though it's shielding him, protecting him. We've got some foreshadowing there. Okay, it's foreshadowing the death of Romeo at the end of the play, and arguably that's because of the family's hatred of each other and because of his love for Juliet. That's why he died at the end. But it's those last few lines that I'm really interested in. Okay, the metaphor where Romeo compares himself to a sailor and that Juliet is the thing to be discovered. He uses that verb adventure, which has connotations of danger and hazard, perhaps suggesting that true love is dangerous. And he also uses that noun merchandise, which has connotations of possession, as though Juliet's a prize to be sought and even bought. Okay, now that you've seen what you should do when you're presented with an extract, you have a choice. You can either look at this extract from later in Act 2, Scene 2, when Romeo has sworn his love to Juliet. And what I want you to do is annotate the scene and in the way that I have done. So you can either, if you can, print out the extract and annotate around it, or, and just as acceptable, you can write down your ideas in note form about the scene, okay, encompassing all those ideas that I've modelled. So think about what is actually happening in the scene, what you can infer from what is happening, and any specific devices being used. So can you pick out any similes or metaphors, personification, specific adverbs used, verbs, adjectives, whatever. Now don't forget, you have got No Fear Shakespeare, that website that will translate the scene for you if you're a little bit stuck. So you can have a look at that extract, or you can look at this extract. Now this extract is not one that you will probably be as familiar with, so if you're really up for a challenge, look at this extract from Act 1, Scene 2. Okay, at this moment, Romeo has not yet met Juliet and he's in love with Rosaline. Okay, but it's exactly the same task. So annotate the scene, so either print it out and annotate around it, or write down your ideas in note form in the way that I have modelled, thinking about what is actually happening in the scene, what you can infer from what is happening, and any specific devices being used. Now again, you can use No Fear Shakespeare if you need a little bit of help figuring out what's happening in this scene. Okay, so last lesson we looked at annotating an extract from Romeo and Juliet, and what we'll have ended up with is lots of great analysis about lots of different things that are happening in that extract. And that's brilliant, but in your exam you will be asked to narrow the focus of your analysis to a specific theme or character. Okay, so you won't have to talk about lots of different things, you'll be asked to really narrow your focus. So as an example, let's narrow our focus and just focus on this question. How does Shakespeare present love in this extract? Okay, so I only want to focus on the things that tell me what Shakespeare's saying about love. So there's my extract with all of my annotations, all of my analysis. If I'm just focusing on the way that Shakespeare presents love in the extract, I'm not going to need all of that. Okay, some of it won't be relevant, or some of it won't be or won't help me write really detailed paragraphs or analysis. So I need to think about the things that I just want to focus on. So actually, if that's my extract and that's my question, I'm just going to focus on these things. Okay, so I've removed the other things that I don't think are going to help me answer that question. I'm just going to look at these things. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take that analysis, okay, as you did with the exploded quotations, and I'm going to turn that into a what, how, why paragraph. So there's my extract, there's my question. How does Shakespeare present love in this extract? So essentially, I'm asking myself, what is Shakespeare saying about love? How do I know this? How is the language in that extract supporting those ideas? And how are the language devices being used to support these ideas? And then finally, why is Shakespeare presenting love in this way? What kind of wider comment is he making, and why is he making that comment? So taking my analysis, I might end up with a paragraph that looks like this. Shakespeare portrays love as intense through Romeo's declaration. When Juliet fears Romeo will be discovered, he says, "My life were better ended by their hate than death prorogued wanting of thy love," suggesting he is willing to die in pursuit of her love. It is as if his feelings for her are so strong that death at the hands of the Capulets would be better than being denied her love. Perhaps this is foreshadowing the end of the play where Romeo dies, arguably due to the hatred between the two families. The oxymoron of the two intensities of love and hate may also suggest that the two are linked, and therefore love is dangerous. Arguably, Shakespeare is commenting on the inevitable danger which comes from the pursuit of true love. At a time where courtly love was the expectation, Shakespeare could be warning the audience what can happen when true love is sought. So pretty much everything in there is just pulled from that analysis, from those annotations, those explosions of the extract that I did initially. All I've added really is that contextual link, that thinking about Shakespeare's intentions, which is what you're looking at in college. Okay, so using your annotated extract from last time, really narrow your focus now just to think about how love is presented. Okay, and write 2 what, how, why paragraphs explaining how love is presented in one of these extracts. Okay, whichever one you looked at last time. From last lesson, you should now have 2 what, how, why paragraphs which explore how love is presented in an extract from Romeo and Juliet, and that's brilliant. However, the full exam question will ask you to make links to the rest of the play as well. So you will have to write about the extract, but you'll also have to make links to the rest of the play. And that is where your retrieval practice and those exploded quotation flashcards will be absolutely essential. So what does that full question look like then? So it will give you the extract and tell you where it's from. So the following extracts from Act 2, Scene 2. In this scene, Romeo has appeared at Juliet's balcony. And the full question is, starting with this extract, explore how Shakespeare presents love in Romeo and Juliet. And it will tell you to write about how Shakespeare presents love in the extract and how Shakespeare presents love in the rest of the play. Now, fortunately for us, we've already done the first bit. We've already written about how love is presented in the extract. So the purpose of today is just to think about those links. Okay, what can we talk about from the rest of the play to help answer that question? So I'm going to think back to my extract and what I said about love in the extract. So thinking about those notes I made, those annotations I made. And essentially what that came down to is I said that love has made Romeo fearless and brave. I said essentially that love has given Romeo freedom. I said that Romeo's love for Juliet has affected him. I said that love and hate are linked, and that love is dangerous, that it leads to death or violence. So if that's what I've said about love in the extract, I need to think about where else in the play that love is presented in those ways. Or I might think about moments where a contrasting view of love is presented, so the opposite of what I've said in the extract. So from my bank of quotations, I'm just going to think about the 5 things that I've said about the extract and think about other quotations that would match those points. Okay, and that's the list here that I've come up with. Now these are some options. There will be lots of other quotations from the play that would fit. It's just really your personal preference, which quotations you think you could talk about. So here's those points again and the quotations from the rest of the play that I've chosen to support those ideas and what I've already written about love in the extract. Now thinking about those 5 points, you cannot possibly write about everything. I could not possibly, in the time given in the exam, write about all of those things and the extract. So looking at my model paragraph, I'm going to think about out of those 5 points, which of those quotations will best link to what I've already written. So I think looking at what I've already written and my analysis that I've already done, I think I should focus on these 3 ideas for the rest of my response. Okay, so I'm just going to think about how Romeo's love for Juliet has affected him, like we talked about how it's given him wings, and would link it to this quotation here. I'm going to think about how love and hate are linked and link it to that quotation, and the idea that love is dangerous and link it to that quotation. So those are the ideas that I'm going to think about based on what I've already written. So I'm just going to take one of the points I made about love from the extract and then that supporting quotation from somewhere else in the play. So I've gone with the fact that love is dangerous and it leads to death or violence. And the quotation I chose was from the friar who said these violent delights have violent ends. And turning that into a what, how, why paragraph, we get something like this. Shakespeare's portrayal of love as dangerous is also shown when the friar refers to Romeo and Juliet's relationship as violent delights, which will have violent ends. The juxtaposition of violent and delights again links love with brutality. Their love is meant to bring joy and pleasure, but here Shakespeare suggests that it brings something cruel and vicious. Also, the tragic end of the play is again foreshadowed as the friar predicts their love will have violent ends, which is suggestive of the brutal death, particularly of Juliet, who ultimately stabs herself. It is as if the outcome of the intense relationship between Romeo and Juliet is inevitable and predictable. Shakespeare is further warning the audience of the perils of not only love, but of intense and extreme emotions and love which is experienced too quickly. Okay, so it's exactly the same structure, what, how and why. And if I was really stuck, I could have exploded that quotation before I started to give me that analysis. Okay, so your task then is just like I did. Look back at what you have said about the portrayal of love in the extract that you have chosen. So the extract that you looked at right at the beginning of the week and you've kept coming back to, what have you said about love in that extract? Then find 2 or 3 quotations from the rest of the play which link to the ideas you've already made and what you've already said about love, okay, just like I did. And then using one of those quotations, write one what, how, why paragraph. Okay, try to link it to your previous paragraphs. Okay, what have you already said about love? How can you link that to something else said in the play? Some hints and tips. Remember, you can find the quotations, there's a whole bank of them, on the week 6 lessons from the Romeo and Juliet scheme. You could also think about the quotations that you've already exploded in previous weeks, and if they link, you can use those. Or if you find quotations from that bank of quotations, you can explode them before you start. Okay, so use that as a kind of stepping stone to help you structure your analysis or think about ideas.